So let's get started here. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar. I'm Mike Smitherman with Metric Insights, and to kick things off, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping items before introducing our speakers and getting started. So first off, lines are obviously muted, but we will be answering questions via the Q&A or chat window on your Zoom interface. So please enter any questions as you think of them, and we'll be leaving some time at the end to get them answered. We are recording this webinar, so a link will be sent out afterwards, so feel free to share it with colleagues who weren't able to make it today. And so with that, I'm extremely excited to introduce our two speakers today. So we have Wayne Eckerson joining us, who I'm sure many of you are already aware of. Hi, Wayne. He's a well-recognized thought leader in the BI and analytics space, and is a founder of the Eckerson Group, again, a well-known consulting firm in the industry. And alongside Wayne, we have Metric Insights founder and CEO, Marius Moscovici. Hi, Marius. Another veteran of the data and analytics space. And so welcome, thanks for joining us today. And the subject of today's webinar is how a BI portal is the missing ingredient in your BI strategy. And we're going to start with Wayne giving us his perspective on this topic, and then turn it over to Marius, who's actually going to show us a demo of the Metric Insights solution in this space and how it addresses some of the things that Wayne will be talking about. So with that, enough from me, and Wayne, over to you.
Thanks, Mike, and welcome everyone. Great topic today. It's one that I've been thinking about for a long time and wondering where the heck is our universal BI portal? Well, we're just starting to see the advent of these in the marketplace, thanks to companies like Metric Insights. But before we dive into that topic, I thought it'd be helpful to kind of set the broad spectrum of what's going on in our industry. I've been in this space long enough to realize that there's been three eras of analytics. There's been the business intelligence era that started in 1990, the self-service intelligence era that started in 2005, give or take, and now we're entering into the artificial intelligence era. And I used to have this slide, and it kind of showed the very distinct eras, but in actuality, we're building one on top of the other. And business intelligence really is the foundation for self-service and artificial or augmented intelligence, at least within a corporate enterprise that it needs to do all of these things. BI is pretty much report-driven, dashboard-driven type of analysis. Self-service is user-driven. And AI is, model-driven, AI-driven. And in terms of focus, we're moving from the past to the present to the future. IT-generated to business-generated to machine-generated reports. The analysis is going from I have an intuition, I want to explore it, to a hypothesis of a business user, and to model-driven, as I said earlier. We're moving from reactive decision-making to proactive, and then eventually automated or augmented decision-making, and the value of what we're delivering goes up. But it's really important to establish a strong foundation with BI. That provides the core reports, the core dashboards that are going to address and answer 60 to 80% of the questions that people have out there. And frankly, in our consulting division, we go into every client and they're still struggling with BI. And, in every stage here, there are things that you really have to master. Not that you can't move on, but if you don't master these things, you'll never fully deliver the value or promise of, say, BI or self-service or AI. So in the BI world, we really do need to figure out how to do data warehouses that work and are agile. We need to integrate data from multiple sources, provide trusted data, or else users won't use any report we give them. We need to standardize our KPIs, and the hard part there is getting the business to really agree on what those metrics of success are. And then finally, we've got to get users to adopt these tools and move from not just gut feel, but to validating their gut feel with data, or using their intuition to validate what they see in their data. It goes both ways. So that's the background. We are here today to focus on BI. So the promise and reality of BI is insights on demand, like Bill Gates used to say, information on your fingertips. Primarily, for most people, it means dashboards to monitor KPIs. And finally, one place to go for data instead of multiple operational systems. A good dashboard should provide actionable information, alerts that or exceptions that people can act on or drill into the data to get more detail before they act. And all that leads to proactive, data-driven decisions that will validate or augment our intuition, as well as re-engineered and optimized business processes, because we have better data to understand what's going on with our processes, what's making them work or fail. That's the promise of BI. The reality I find in many organizations is a little bit different. There are way too many BI tools. We've got tool proliferation. As a result, too many reports, and self-service has only aggravated that situation. When you have too many reports and people building their own reports, you often get conflicting reports. Reports with similar data but conflicting results, which confuses the heck out of users. As a result, they don't trust the data. They don't trust reports. The only reports they trust are the ones they create themselves. So we have all these little fiefdoms of one, silos of one, emerging throughout the enterprise. Still, there's a lack of BI adoption. With all these tools and silos, there's a lot of overhead and costs. So that's the reality that we see every time we go into a client. And I bet if you're listening to this, you have experienced that as well. So we actually did a little bit of a poll a while ago, and we found that we asked how many BI tools exist in your organization. And the plurality, 43%, said 2 to 3, which isn't too bad. But 22% said over 4 and 19% said over 7. So, and I know from experience, every client we go into has multiple tools. There may be a standard or two, but there's usually a lot of tools, in the shadows playing around. Now, in some cases, there's good reason for that, because there's different segments in the BI industry. There are BI tools that push information out to users. There are BI tools that let users pull information to them. There are BI tools that answer known questions that users know in advance they're going to want to know the answers to. And there are tools now that can help you answer questions you didn't even know you had. So traditionally, BI has been, we can break this down to the quadrant charts you see here. Typically, BI has been focused in the left two squares or quadrants. It started out with a push of known questions. That's a report or a dashboard, essentially, pushed out to users on a regular schedule. The era of self-service has brought in the notion of pull, but still known questions. I know what I want to look for in the data, or I know what I want to ask, so I search for it or I ask it. Now we're starting to see the advent of a whole new set of systems that are going to answer unknown questions. The last couple of years, we've seen a lot of BI vendors implement AI for BI tools, using AI to automate insights around a set of data, typically a chart or a dashboard or a query that users just ran. In the background, they'll run some machine learning algorithms, do some regressions, and figure out some correlations to that data that they're looking at. In other words, an analyst in your pocket, a virtual analyst, that can go and do the drill downs that you may not do as a regular business user. And that's really promising. We wrote a report on that last year, I believe, called AI for BI. Now I'm just finishing a report called Business Monitoring, and this is where we're pushing out information to users and alerts, essentially. It's an alerting system using ML to answer unknown questions, things that are happening deep down in the data that users may not have time to ever go find or see, but are relevant to the business and can significantly impact business outcomes if they're not addressed early. So stay tuned for the business monitoring world. This is the whole new world of BI. Now, I've always used this little grid when talking to clients to help them understand, the types of tools they might need. And it's okay to have multiple types of BI tools if they're serving different users and different functions. It's not okay to have two BI tools that are serving the same user, doing the same sorts of activities. So typically companies should have 2 or 3 or 4 types of tools, although the functionality of the tools is really converging these days. And most tools are striving to deliver all of this, but most have a heritage, and you still might want to have, say, 4 different tools for these 4 different types of personas. So there's always going to be a proliferation of tools. Ideally, users have one major tool that they use for most of their work, but there may be other tools as well. And that creates a heterogeneous BI environment, which still means users are having to go multiple places to get information. The tool that they're using may not have access to the application or systems or data that they're looking for, or the metrics or the KPIs. So I've always thought it's weird that BI tools have portals, and I guess that's fine in and of that one environment. You need a portal, but it's kind of useless if you have multiple BI tools because users want a universal portal, a portal that can pull data and reports and metrics from all those BI tools, as well as any database that exists out there. But there's really never been that. I've been asking for that for many, many years. Thankfully, my friends at Metric Insight have heeded the call, and it will be interesting to see their tool at the end of this. So what is the Universal BI Portal? It's one place for business users to go to get any report or metric that they need. It's personalizable, just like a portal. They can customize the interface and show only the reports or metrics or views that they want. They can drill into those views. In this case, it's tiles that show specific metrics from databases as well as BI tools. And they can drill in. If they have access to those tools, they can drill in, open up that tool and that report. The portal also will preset the filters on all of these views, no matter what tool they're coming from. So it's a highly tailored environment. What you're looking at is tailored just to you and no one else. There may be a ticker tape so that you can make announcements and you can catch all the users in your center of excellence, not just a few. If you sequence these tiles or sequence the reports from the different tools, you can create a workflow of sorts that can step users through a business process. That's pretty cool. And you can integrate these with various other channels to facilitate user action. Now, I wrote a book on dashboards, but I've always said the best dashboards, or in this case, an Uber dashboard, which would be a universal portal, they find you. I mean, it's kind of a waste of time for users to have to log into a dashboard, look at it, figure out what's changed, do some analysis and drill down. Most users don't have time for that, which is why the usage and adoption is not as high as we would like it to be. So the best dashboards actually find users when there is something worth looking at. So a lot of tools, including Metric Insight, now deliver a personalized daily email digest where they pull just the relevant things from those multiple tools and dashboards that users need to look at. That's really cool. And better yet, maybe they just send an alert instead of even a daily digest. Let's proactively send an alert. So this is the business monitoring aspect that I mentioned earlier. Tools are starting to use machine learning to understand the behavior of individual metrics, which is what you can see in that shaded pink area. And then when a metric falls outside of that threshold or that boundary, it can trigger alert. And then you can apply other machine learning rules to the alert to see if it's relevant enough by a variety of different characteristics to even bother showing to the user. And then in this case, you can see in the diagram, there's collaboration around that alert, which is what users want to do. Something's happened, what do we do? As you'll see later, I think on this slide, oh, there's an alert. This is relevant. This is serious. We ought to assign this to someone and track the remediation. So we can use BI tools to get exception alerts, build a workflow, and track how it's being remediated. Now, the most exciting thing I think about a universal BI portal are the administrative features. You know, those are never very sexy, right? But in this case, I think they really are, because finally we're giving a BI manager a complete transparent view of everything that's going on in their BI world. Whereas, you know, earlier or currently in most companies, they just have this fragmented view. It's like looking at your BI environment through a kaleidoscope, right? You can see a lot of stuff happening, but you can't pull it all together. So what do these features do? Well, you can finally track the number of reports you actually have out there across all your tools. Then you can track who's using which reports by which tools. You can identify duplicate reports within a tool or across tools, or unused reports. I mean, how many of you have, most of your reports are probably not being used very much, right? And if you shut them down, most people wouldn't notice. Better yet, you can identify how many of your BI licenses are actually being used actively by tool. And then you can calculate the ROI of that BI tool based on its usage and the cost of the license by user. Isn't that cool? It gives you all the ammunition you need to start to standardize your BI tool to a more rational portfolio. And you can even compare the metadata of reports. You can sit them side by side to actually see where there are conflicts in the reports. You know, they're using the same term, but with different definitions, et cetera, et cetera. So it really helps you troubleshoot your report portfolio and simplify things for users, start to standardize and harmonize those reports. That's really cool. So what are some best practices for a portal? You know, moving back to the portal side of things, it's common sense kind of stuff. You know, you're basically telling a story with a portal, and you let the user kind of create their own narrative, but I think you have to help them along to configure the portal so it's a relevant narrative every time they look at it. So start small and then expand based on demand. Let the users kind of drive it. If you try to do too much too soon, you might overwhelm them. Make sure you divide content logically across portal pages. Again, simplify the view. You know, keep it simple, stupid. Very relevant here. Make sure the content is accurate. You know, the last thing you want is for users to look at the data and say that's wrong, and then they'll never use it again. That's a no-brainer, obviously. Create ways for users to request additional content if they can't do it themselves because they don't have permission. It's got to be seamless access to customize this environment for the user. Review all the pages monthly. You might want to start with executives, then cascade down. You know, once executives start using something, everyone else is obligated to do so as well. Definitely with alerts, show them how to personalize those because those can get out of control quickly. And as I said at the start, tell a story or narrative with the portal. And you might need to coach users individually with that. So in summary, I believe I've been waiting for a universal BI portal for years, maybe even decades, as well as its complement, the universal BI semantic layer. That's another thing that's been buried inside each tool. So maybe we'll talk about that in another webinar later. But this portal is a way to pull everything together, not only for the users in a heterogeneous BI environment, but also for the administrators. And once you get your BI environment harmonized and you get it humming, then you're really ready to make good on these other advanced approaches to analytics, self-service, augmented intelligence, and artificial intelligence. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marius. It's going to have to, let's see here. Where are you, Marius? Oh, I'm just going to stop sharing. I guess I'll just do that.
Hello, thanks, Wayne.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing those insights. I'm going to give you spend most of my time doing a demo here to see the product, but just briefly before we get there, wanted to kind of, I think this really goes along with a lot of what Wayne was talking about as far as what a BI portal is supposed to do. But we think of our BI portal as having sort of 3 pillars. So thinking about all the different places in your enterprise where there is information that is relevant from a business intelligence perspective that your users might want to consume. SaaS products, a BI tool, sometimes PDFs or Excels or all kinds of different things like that. Metric Insights basically, as a portal, does 3 things at a high level. It organizes all that content in one place so users can find everything without having to go multiple places. Remember, is that report in the BI tool or is it back in Salesforce? You just find it all in one place. Enriches the content. So basically, identifying anomalies, exceptions, the things Wayne talked about as far as distributing content to folks so that they get what they want, is then the 3rd thing. So basically saying we'll show anomalies and then we'll identify exceptions and then we'll push out critical information to users in a way that's meaningful for them to consume. So with that said, let's take a look at how this plays out for Metric Insights. So what you're looking at here is our homepage, essentially, our catalog view. And everything that you're seeing, maximize this for a second. So every visualization that a user might have access to is being shown as a tile in this view. And you can see here an accurate image of what that looks like. That can be something from a BI tool such as Tableau, ClickSense, Cognos, what have you. And there can be also other pieces of content like KPIs that you can surface up, links to videos, links to PDFs, things of that nature. And the idea is that as a user, I can come in here and I can say, I'm interested in this particular piece of content. And when I click on it, I then see an accurate preview of what that particular visualization looks like today. Sometimes I just look at this preview and that might be enough. Tell me what's going on. But if I want to really interact with it, I click again, and then I'm taken to to consume that content directly in the Metric Insights portal. So this is kind of an example of how we enrich some of that content. So here you have the live visualization, but additionally up here I've got my filters set up as bookmarks. So I can set up maybe a couple different combinations of filters that I like to see this visualization by, and then I can just flip between those bookmarks very easily here. The bookmarking capability is exactly the same whether I'm using Tableau or Power BI or Click or some other BI tool because it's all set up in the portal. I can have documentation, so I can see here, maybe there's release notes or updates, perhaps something was changed recently in some definition. That kind of metadata can be posted here. And then down here, I can have collaborative information. So as the expert in this area, I can identify what recent trends have happened in the data. Users can also collaborate and discuss this information. So that's an example of sort of viewing that content. And then in addition to these BI tool visualizations, you also have the ability to pull data out of Metric Insights. So, a BI tool was great for showing a dashboard where I can do lots of slicing and dicing, but sometimes your executives just want to see the high-level numbers to start with. And so Metric Insights allows you to get to those right away. So here's an example of a metric, this daily sales metric. If I click on it, I can see, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong place here. Okay, come in here. If I look at this daily sales metric, I can see the trend line over time, and then I can do some of the things that Wayne talked about automatically with the KPIs that are sourced from wherever this data might reside. It could be coming from a BI tool, or it could be coming from a database. So for example, Metric Insights automatically does a statistical view, that reddish band identifies where the anomalies are in that data, the points that fall outside of that band, and you can then generate alerts based on those. You can also show event calendars, what things might have impacted that metric. People can collaborate via annotations and so forth. And then users can either use these sort of volatility type alerts out of the box, or they can define their own alert rules by any number of combinations, just following a wizard through a step-by-step process. And this handles that, business metric alerting type of capabilities that Wayne talked about as being important in this next generation of BI. So there you have an example of a metric KPI, and you can also do in metric insights. You also have some, fairly simple native reporting, and that's used to really enrich the content that you have in your BI tool. So for example, here I have a BI tool, a Tableau dashboard, and it has a number of different drop downs here for filters. As a user of this content, I would have to go in and look through all the different filter combinations to find which slice has relevant information. But with metric insights dataset reporting, we can identify the anomalies right out of the box and say, here's the three variations of country, channel, category. Here's the variations of values that have anomalies for this particular day. And then if I click over here, it actually presets the filters for me. So, metric insights, very quick reporting that you can create that will enrich and extend the dashboards that you already have built in your enterprise. So coming back to the catalog view here for a moment, you've noticed probably on the left-hand side that there's a whole hierarchy. So objects can live in a category, and it can be a whole tree for that. They can be combined across categories into folders. So you can think of maybe across all your KPIs for a particular executive, you can pull them from many different areas and put them in a shared folder. And then users can also self-curate favorites. So if I find a piece of content, I click on a star, it adds it to my favorites, and then from then on, I can just access it right here, and create that workflow that Wayne was talking about, where I can just go from item to item, and not have to find the content by searching for it. Additionally, there's a global search capability. So when I click up here, you can see it's recommending my most commonly searched items. I can also just if I type something in here, I search for sales analysis, it presents sort of a Google style search interface where I can see all the results across all of my content. I can see preview images for the things that are there, irrespective of whether they're MicroStrategy content, Tableau, other BI tools. I can see data sets that are metric insights that are pulled in. And then I can even extend it to pull things that are not in the portal. So I've got these images for things that are pulled in from the portal, but perhaps I've got things that are sitting that have not been promoted to the portal. I can access those as well. So this sort of global search and the ability to find content wherever it resides, whether it's in here or in BI overlay layers like Denodo, other things like that, is very powerful from one place to search and find all of your content from a user experience. So we've kind of looked here at what the experience is like for the maybe the admin or the content creator. I want to switch for a moment to see, what would this look like maybe for an end user who's just consuming content. So here I've switched to a different browser and I'm looking at the same kind of portal, but what you can see here is on the left-hand side, you've got a whole lot less content. So, because the security model through an LDAP and Active Directory integration would constrain what a user sees. So I'm only seeing the categories that are relevant to me. I have the ability to, I have the ability up here to see announcements. So the ticker tape that Wayne talked about, is available over here. And so you can see there's the ability to see, that the fact that, hey, the Tableau product, Tableau perhaps today was down due to some kind of data collection issue, and I need to address that. So that way to make announcements for your users and things that they might be interested in looking. And then otherwise I can see all the content that I would normally be consuming here. And so if I click, for example, on my Tableau sales analysis tile, then what I'm going to see here is it's going to generate a preview that is customized for me. So this isn't just a generic dashboard, but in fact, it is using my preset filters that I would normally see the dashboard with. And if I click on here, you will be able to see that I'm going to the viewer again. Oh, I did not sign into Tableau, just a second. Normally this would happen through your Active Directory sign-in. I don't know, for some reason that's not working for me here, but I would see the Tableau dashboard. Strange. I would see the Tableau dashboard just like you would see in the other browser with a pre-filtered filters applied for me. Go back home. So we've looked at the ability. You've got content preset here for the user. This is just one of a number of different ways that you can see the content. So you can basically go in here as well and combine the content into portal pages, which are basically curated ways to present information for users. So for example, if I go to here to see my new content, this will show me as a user, what is it that the portal is recommending for me for new things that have been added that have been recently subscribed, right? So I can see here the various dashboards that maybe have been created recently that are being promoted. And then I can also see that there's some things here with these little lock icons. And this is an interesting point in that really, if you think about the content that you have out there, there's some things you want to give people full access to. I can click in here, and I can see that visualization. There are other things that maybe you don't want users to be able to see at all because, hey, this particular piece of content should be locked away. You've got your security restrictions around that. But then there's this third tier of content that you want to be able to allow users to be able to discover. And so this discoverability works with this locks. I don't actually see the image. It's all blurred out. I see that there's a lock. And if I click on it, then I have an opportunity to subscribe to that content by, to make an access request that then will be sent to the administrator or owner of that content, which will request, hey, Marius wants to take a look at this, and then I can be granted access to it. So that's one example. Another example of a portal page would be maybe combining content across different places, maybe perhaps looking at different metrics. So for example, here, you might want to give your business users, perhaps executives, a single point of view where they can look at those high-level KPIs. What are the metrics that I need to pay attention to across multiple different areas? I want to see those in a very dense view where I don't need to go hunting for them in lots of places. I want to know how they changed. So, how did it change from last week, from yesterday? And then I want to be able to drill down from here, right? So if I click from here, I can then go into either a Metric Insights metric or visualization or Metric Insights report, or I can go to Tableau, Power BI, whatever your BI tool is that you would normally use to consume this content. And that this is a really powerful way to combine all of the different KPIs that are available to a particular business executive into a single, very, very focused view where they don't have to go hunting for it, and also include this annotation and sort of announcement type information up at the top, where they would then know what is happening if there's recent developments in that particular area. So that's another example. And all of these components, once you put any particular dashboard together, once they're registered in the system, these different components, these metrics, they can all be combined together into these mashups where all the content is put together in a portal page. So you can have here's an example of metrics, KPIs, exceptions. I can have dashboards down here that are all in a single a single page where user does not have to go multiple places, and they can interact with all those objects together. So that's another way that portal pages really allow you to engage your users in a much more meaningful interaction with the data. So we've looked at that at sort of portal pages, and then I'll show you kind of as Wayne was talking a bit about usage and being able to really track how people are using the analytics that you have in the portal. I'll show you a little bit about how that works, Metric Insights. So here, I click on this usage page. I can see all of the analytics that are out there across all the different tools, and I can start really to understand the usage patterns for the data. right? I can see, what are the things that are most popular. So here's the content that is getting a lot of traction. What's increasing in popularity, perhaps things that have been promoted recently and have been added. If I scroll down here, I can see what's the unused content, those things that we probably should be thinking about removing from the portal because it's just generating clutter. Nobody's really accessing it. Or if it's really important, it should be promoted. And then what do we see decreasing popularity? So it gives you an immediate insight into the content and how it's being managed. I can click on anything here and I can really dig down deeper. So if I go in this Tableau sales analysis, I can see, how has this been viewed by over time, who's viewing it across different users, different groups. So I can have different time frames and really understand in a much deeper sense how users are consuming that content. And so that's one example of how to use that information. And then another thing that you can do is you can look at a time-lapse view into how that content is actually being utilized. So for example, if we look at this Tableau sales analysis, if I click on this icon, what I'm looking at here, I'll just pause this for a moment, is a visualization that shows over time how are users engaging with this particular piece of content. So this circle here is 1 day, then there's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So it shows how far out it's been since a user's engaged with that content. And as you play this out over time, you can see that some users are coming in to see that content and they are in fact, sticking at that 1 day level. They're continuously looking at it. While others, maybe have looked at that content at one point, and then over time that, they've not come back. This user here, Avery Smith, you can see, it's been over 40 days since she used this content, and it's gradually fading out. So this kind of a view gives you a sense in how the content utilization is occurring across all the user base in a way that's just not possible in just a static metric where you say, okay, you've had 30 users use this content over the last 60 days. Are they continuously using it, or did they just use it once and kind of go away? You can do this kind of deep dive analysis with this visualization. The same thing can happen looking at user behavior. So I can look at not only sort of what kind of logins do I have over time, what people are searching on, where they're searching and finding things, but I can also zero in on a particular user or a group of users, and I can say, how is this user actually consuming content within the portal? So across everything that's available to them, here's the content they've used, here's how long it's been since they've used it, and then time-lapsing this over a period of time, I can see how that usage pattern is changing, where are the things that are just drifting out because it's content that was interesting for them at one point, but didn't continue to be interesting. And then what are the things that are, that's gravitating to them, they're coming back to. So obviously boosting engagement is very important, and we have a number of tools that are available to do that. So, Wayne mentioned that the best dashboards come to you, and so you're able to do that with Metric Insights to do distribution to users. So let me, it's in the other browser. So you have the ability to say, for the things that I care about, here's a digest of all the things that I've marked in my favorites. So I've got my metrics, my KPIs, here's what's trending, what's changing significantly today. Here are the metrics that are all the metrics that I care about and how they're performing. And here are the dashboards, independent of tool, being distributed to me, all in a single glance, so that I can take a look in the morning. I can open this up and open my email, take a look at what's going on, and not have to go 10 different places, not even have to go to the portal. It's all being delivered to me directly in email. And then I have the ability to do this, in this kind of scenario where I'm seeing all my content, and I can also get alerts sent to me saying, here's my dashboards with the combinations of values that have changed and a snapshot for each of those, or here's an alert that requires my attention. Here's my dashboard, and my sales number has for this particular slice for Canada has gone down significantly versus where it was before. So these are tools, this burst, this distribution, very powerful, and it's possible to do this in a self-service method where I just say what I want my favorites and get that sent to me. It's also possible to set up bursts in a managed environment where you as a power user or an admin says, here's the 10 pieces of content that I want to send all the executives, and then they automatically receive it every day. They don't need to set it up. And both are very powerful effectively. So the final piece I want to kind of talk to you guys about is as Wayne mentioned, sort of managing ROI, be more effective about license management across the BI tool is really important. So everybody's being asked these days to do more with less. And as it turns out, there's a real opportunity when you look at what users are actually consuming across the BI tools that you have to be much more efficient and save a lot of money in that area. So one of the things that we can do, because we pull all this usage data from all the underlying tools, is we can identify what is your current usage of the tools, how many users on any given period of time, 60, 90, 180 days, have actually been inactive in using your BI tool stack. And then through a number of tools that we provide internally to be able to help with provisioning and automate the process of managing licensing effectively, you can essentially reduce your license count significantly by focusing those licenses on those users that are actually using the system actively. And then for those users that are not actively using your BI tools, you can deploy the techniques that I showed you before, the metrics, the KPIs, the distribution platform, to be able to get them engaged with analytics without necessarily paying for a license for them that they're not going to use. And then eventually when they, if particular individuals want to start actively working with those tools, you can work with, the portal allows that whole process to take place. So this is really important, because if you do have thousands of licenses for BI tools within your enterprise, odds are that just by deploying a BI portal, being better about license management, the ROI of that alone will probably more than offset the cost of getting the BI portal in place. So it is truly a case where you don't need to necessarily come up with a new budget, and you can do more with less while delighting your customers and delivering a much better experience for your users. So with that, let's switch gears here, and we'll go to the Q&A section of the webinar. So let me open it up. And Mike, did we get any questions that came?
Yeah, thank you, Marius. Thanks, Wayne. Some great content there again. Everyone, if you have additional questions, some have come in, then type them into the chat or Q&A window. Just look at some here. So we have had some come in. For bring your organization to support a BI portal. Wayne, I wonder whether you have any thoughts on that one.
Mike, can you repeat that? I think there was a problem with audio.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yes, you're okay.
Yep.
So the question was, can you talk best practices structure your BI organization to support a BI portal implementation? And I wonder, Wayne, whether you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, you were breaking up just as you asked that again, but I'll take a stab. I think you were talking about a BI organization and how best to set it up.
Yeah, how best to set it up for a BI portal implementation and success moving forward.
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question, because I spent a lot of time writing and talking and consulting with companies about how best to organize themselves into what I call a federated center of excellence. But the key is that we don't want users to kind of hole up into their departments and not align with what people are doing in other departments or at corporate. It's just it's kind of a waste of resources. It creates fragmentation and silos. But there's got to be a way to there's got to be some connective tissue between departments and between departments and corporate. And I think this universal BI portal is one of those tissues. You saw those very powerful administrative functions that you can keep track of who's doing what out there. And in fact, that was a question I had for Marius is from that last screen you showed with, unused licenses or downgradable users. I assume the downgradable users are users who are using, but not using the functionality of the higher level license. Is that true?
That's right. That's right. There's oftentimes, there's different license levels for a BI tool. And, if you a lot of times is delineated around the ability to view only versus the ability to maybe publish content and author content. And, what we find when we're looking at a lot of these organizations, maybe it's not unusual for 25 to 50% of the overall license count to actually be not used at all. And then when you look within the remaining population, a lot of times there's an over allocation where you're paying for a license for somebody because you thought maybe they would build content, but in fact they're not. And when you add that up across the entire organization, that can be a very significant savings to just right size those licenses to give them the right.
Right. So then from that view, can you actually drill down and see the individual users?
Yes, you can actually download. You can actually.
So, to answer Mike's question, I would use that tool. And to be honest, this doesn't sound scalable, but one-on-one meetings or one-on-one with the department to go say, hey, you guys aren't really using this tool since in the last, 2 months, maybe since we, released a new version. What's going on? Is there something wrong that's causing you to not use this tool anymore? So you can use it as an early warning system in case things are going wrong, something you release is not working, the display is not amenable anymore. So I think this is one of those connective tissues that can really help a BI center of excellence thrive, where you're using resources at corporate with tools like this to stay on top of what everyone's doing or not doing, and make sure you are optimizing the environment for them. So I actually had another question for you, Marius, if I may, which was at the beginning when you showed a Tableau sales dashboard, and then you clicked into it. I thought you were clicking into Tableau itself, but it sounds like for certain of those views in the portal, you actually import all the data and create a live interactive view inside Metric Insight. I guess I'm wondering, where is the boundary between viewing the metrics and the tiles and the dashboards in Metric Insight and then drilling through, because you also showed that once. You can drill through into the actual tool, presumably if you have, access to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is that what we're actually doing. That's a great call out. The idea is that you are when you're looking at a particular piece of content here. So if I click on a particular tile, this Tableau tile that we looked at. Right there, I just saw an image that I grabbed, but when I'm doing something interactive, this is Tableau. So all we're doing is we're iframing that content, right?
You're iframing, okay.
Yes. And then
so you take a snapshot, the prior view is just a screenshot that you take of the report?
That's correct. So what we do is, because if you subscribe to this, you're going to want to see that report. So we need that, and also here you want to be able to see a preview of what you're going to get into. So this is a screenshot of the report, and this is the same thing, and just that you would get in the email, slightly larger, obviously, if you subscribe to it. So, and then additionally, we have the ability to get the data out, which allows us to do, if you do want to then look at exceptional analysis against that dashboard, now we have this kind of view where here's your interactive dashboard down here. This is an iframe for Tableau, but up here we've pulled some of the key data that from the dashboard in order to generate the anomaly detection.
So I also thought I saw that you drilled down into dashboard and into Tableau, and you opened up the Tableau tool itself. Did you do that, or
that's right? You can do that as well. So I can open the visualization here, and I can go completely outside of the product of the portal. So for some customers, they would want to do this, where you just go and want to consume everything natively in Tableau. For other folks, they consume it within the iframe of the portal, simply so that they can enrich it with documentation, so they can enrich it with collaboration, so they can do things like bookmarking more easily and in universal way and so forth. So
right, well that makes a lot of sense. Use it in the portal, because then you have all the collaboration around it. Yeah.
A couple of other questions, guys. Hopefully you can hear me again now. So will BI portals and data catalog technologies merge in the future because of similar ideas and concepts? Marius, do you have a perspective on that one?
I mean, I think that there's some differences. I think that there's definitely overlap in the sense that, you can see data catalogs being consolidated into BI portals. So, for example, when I do a search here, I want to be able to search not just against the content here, but I may want to search across, maybe I have Denodo as my data catalog, and I want to be able to find the content that's there. I want to look at views that are accessible there. And in fact, we support that. So you can register content for searching that is outside, that it isn't a data catalog. You basically, there's a synchronization process. We bring in that data and then it becomes searchable. That said, I think this fundamental purpose the data catalogs provide that's a little bit different than just a portal. Right? Portal is really largely suited and targeted towards the business user community. There's these great administrative capabilities that are important, and they generate ROI, and they help you, create a really great experience. But the end result is around a consumption model for the end user, of which, when you look across the entire enterprise, you may be looking at thousands of people that don't ever access the data catalog, right? Just a very small number may do that. So I see as like integration with a data catalog, absolutely. There has to be consolidation there for any kind of good BI portal to work. But as far as merging of the products, I'm not sure that those address the same audience. Wayne may have a different point of view. I'd love to hear his thoughts as well.
Yeah, we're seeing convergence out there. I think every tool, no matter whether you're a database, a ETL, data pipeline, analytics tool, data prep tool, you're going to have search, and you'll be able to search and explore data to some degree and look at its metadata. And then I think you'll start to see integration, as Marius said, with other catalog. So you can pull in Denodo's catalog information, but probably Denodo or Relation will be able to pull in yours, right? So,
sure,
there'll be some tools like Relation that are the Uber catalogs that are pulling from everything, all the other catalogs, that are more tool specific. The original data catalog was to be able to crawl databases and bring back data sets, but now it's let's bring back queries. Let's bring back objects. Let's bring back reports. So yeah, that Uber catalog is getting to be pretty chock full, but you'll see, elements of the catalog in various, more domain tools like this one. It's more focused on BI.
So a couple of other questions here. Can you show the global filter capability between Tableau and some other report, Marius? I don't know whether you can. Do you have the dashboard browser maybe, the portal page?
Let me see over here. Yeah, so let me go to the dashboard. Dashboard browser. Yep, they should do it. So so here's an example of the global filter capability. So here I've got multiple different dashboards. So here's my Tableau dashboard, and I can switch from here to a different, ClickSense or Cognos or any other kind of dashboard that I might want to have, and these filters will actually be preserved, right? So I can set the filters once, submit that, and then I can switch between different visualization tools, and the same. I don't have single sign-on enabled on this environment, so you have to kind of believe me, but that's how it works.
Okay, and do you need a license, for example, Click, to be able to see the screenshot taken from the Click data?
No, because all the images that are grabbed, to be able to just see the image, those are pulled using service accounts. So you do need a license for that service account. You need one metric instance license for each kind of service account that's collecting the image. But the user itself does not need a license to be able to see the static image. They would only need a license in order to interact with that content.
So how do you control security, Marius? That's the thing. You're opening up everything, right? But how do you guarantee that people aren't seeing something in Click that they don't have access to that. They don't license that tool.
So usually the service accounts for image collection are set up and aligned around the groups that have security access, based on security access. So you would, in a large enterprise, you're not going to have one service account. You're going to have, for grabbing images, you're going to have an account for the finance group that's grabbing, that can only see the finance content, and so they're never going to see that. And then additionally, in metric insights, we enforce the security. So the service account gets the data, but you don't necessarily see the image here if you do not actually have access to that content, right?
When you say service account, what are you talking about? Is that like an Active Directory or LDAP or something else?
Yes, through Active Directory and LDAP. Active Directory specifically, you basically have a group assignment, and then in Metric Insights, you have access to particular categories of content or individual pieces of content through that Active Directory membership. And then you can only see whether it's the static image or the interactive content. You're only going to be able to see that if you have correct permissions. So that way we essentially inherit the same kind of security that you would provide for the underlying tool. Almost all large enterprises use LDAP or Active Directory to drive the security within their BI tools. We simply use those same groups to determine whether you see that image or not.
What's the most popular administrative feature that customers like?
The most popular administrative feature. I mean, I think that from an administration perspective, the ability to pull in content here and have the combination of give me access to everything if I search for it, if I want to find it, but also curate the content so I can declutter my BI environment is probably the most powerful feature, if you want to think of it as a feature. The reality is that in most of these BI environments over time, an enormous amount of duplication and clutter forms. And so, when you bring a portal together, it's not just about like take all the links and take all the content and just drop it in here. It's really about making sure you bring in the content that is most heavily used, promote that into the portal in this sort of tile format, and then sure, make it possible for people to find the other stuff if they need to, but don't clutter their experience. So I think that together with the usage tracking that I showed you, where you can then continuously prune and adjust that content space is probably the most potent feature as far as just boosting engagement.
And then I think, so we have a couple more here, and then I think we'll be at the top of the hour. So what is the major challenge in developing a BI portal in-house? So you guys have some perspectives on that.
I think if I'll say my 2 cents and then see what Wayne has to say. The challenges of doing this in-house are kind of twofold. One is that a lot of work has to be done in order to give this kind of very rich experience. There's a lot of work that has to be built up as far as the connectors, right? You think about this across every BI tool that you're working with, you've got to be able to create the infrastructure to get the images, to get data, to interact with your event model. So all that is a significant amount of effort. And then the problem is you can oftentimes very quickly throw together a portal, which is maybe like SharePoint or a bunch of links or something like that. But creating something that is compelling to users and that is easy to administer and manage and keep relevant over time is much more difficult, right? So that list of top 30 links that you set up that may be very useful for your customers right off the bat, your users will that over time, they'll find that less and less useful because it doesn't have all these other capabilities like the distribution, the ability to do alerting, the ability to have the content customized to the user with security, right? Those are the heavier things, the harder things to do that you need to really make it effective within a deployment.
Okay, one final question. I guess it's just a functional one here. Are you able to drag and drop tiles for customization? The answer is yes. I know that one.
I can modify a tile. I can pick a tile from, I can do any of that kind of stuff. I can drag a tile from here and put in a folder. I can do all that, if I want to do that. So, yes.
So we are up against the top of the hour. I think we could talk about this for a lot longer, but thank you both for your time, and thank you for everyone who joined with the questions. As we mentioned, we'll be sending out a recording of this event, and look out for future webinars that we'll be promoting. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Bye. Happy to be here.